Well, yesterday on the program, I discussed the SPLC expanding its hate group list to target concerned parents groups, in addition to Christian organizations like the Family Research Council. Well, new reports indicate that Susan Cork, the architect of the SPLC's hate group list, met with White House national security officials earlier this year. Now, you'll remember the FBI opened 25 preliminary investigations into parents as a part of U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland's task force to monitor school board meetings. Joining me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Bob Good. He serves on the House Education and Workforce Committee, and as a member of the House Freedom Caucus, he represents the 5th Congressional District of Virginia. Congressman Good, welcome back to the program. Good to see you.
Great to be with you, Tony. Thanks for having me again, my friend.
So I want to start with the SPLC coming out with their latest list of hate groups, labeling parents organizations that are speaking out about what's happening in our schools. Now, we also have information to suggest that the author of this report meeting with the White House. This sounds like deja vu back to where we saw the National School Boards Association in collusion with the White House to label parents as domestic terrorists.
Tony, this is consistent with the pattern with this administration, as you know, with all the harm that they have done. One of the greatest, most damaging aspects of this administration is the weaponization of the federal government, federal law enforcement, and other agencies against political opponents, those who dissent or disagree with the radical agenda of the left, of the Biden administration, and those who dare to question the efforts to indoctrinate our children in schools with anti-American ideology, with racist ideology, with transgender ideology, or parents who stand up for the protection of their children against a vaccine mandate for a virus that they were never seriously at risk for, or mask mandates, or stand up and fight for their children to have in-person education opportunity, or to have the right kind of curriculum that's what's taught to their kids, or at least to know what the curriculum is and have a say in that, and then to be targeted by this federal government, by this Department of Injustice. And it's not surprising to see the confirmation for this visit that you're referencing from the SPLC to be meeting with this administration, because this is who they get guidance from. This is who helps them strategize on how to attack those who are standing up for the right things in our country.
You know, Bob, what's interesting here is that there's a clear set of issues for which the SPLC will go to bat for. Now, in times past, long time ago, they actually did advocate for human rights, going against racist organizations. That was a long time ago. Now it seems to be, the nexus seems to be any organization that takes a stand against the CRT in our schools, as you pointed out, the mask, which is the overreach of government. But primarily, it hinges on the whole LGBTQ agenda that parents now are seeing what's happening with this and are pushing back. The only way for the left to succeed is to use the force of government, and that's where we see the collusion.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. The default position for the left, for the Democrats, for organizations like the SPLC is whenever you disagree with them or you challenge their narrative, you challenge their agenda, you challenge their position, then you're a racist, of course, you're a homophobe, you're a transphobe, and they target you. I mean, whether we're talking about Catholics in Richmond, whether we're talking about parents who stand up for their kids' rights at school, whether we're talking about pro-life protesters, whatever it might be. Those are the people that this administration considers to be the greatest threat to the country, that these are to be threatened, intimidated, harassed, arrested, even imprisoned for standing up for what they believe in, for exercising, frankly, their First Amendment protected rights to petition their government with their grievances, to protest peacefully, and just to stand up for the protection of their own children. Their primary responsibility as parents for the protection of their children. But this is par for the course. This is consistent with how this administration operates, and that continues to be revealed day by day.
So, Congressman Good, I mean, the question I think that's on the forefront of a lot of parents who are increasingly being involved in education and other organizations like our own that's been labeled, and as a result of them putting us on their hate map, we had a shooting here in our building 11 years ago.
That's right.
Congress can't solve everything, obviously, but what can be done to, you know, and the SPLC has every right in in our country to be wrong and to be out there. So that's not the issue. The issue is the government holding them up as a credible source of who is, a domestic terrorist organization, this, undefined nebulous term, hate group. But they should not have the credibility of being able to work with the government. How do we address that?
Well, organizations like yours have a role. We appreciate how you're trying to help highlight this, bring transparency, some accountability in terms of public exposure. That's part of it, of course. Also, Congress has a role, obviously, an oversight responsibility, because obviously this is all connected to the federal agencies, the federal departments, the executive branch that is quite frankly, contrary to the founding principles of this country and contrary to at least half of American citizens who may hold a different political view, a different cultural view, a different values view than this administration does. And so what Congress needs to do is, particularly through the Oversight Committee and the Judicial Committee, to hold hearings, to subpoena witnesses when necessary. From a subpoena standpoint, we saw that with the FBI, of course, just recently, but also just to compel witnesses to come and appear. Even in the Education and Workforce Committee that I serve on, I mean, just yesterday, as we were just speaking to the things like the border invasion, quite frankly, because we're dealing with a healthcare issue, but we were targeted, or I should say labeled by my fellow colleagues in the Education Workforce Committee hearing just yesterday that, we were racist because we think the nation ought to have a secure border. So that's what their default position here is in Congress, but we can't be afraid of that. We can't be afraid of the name calling or the labeling. We've got to expose what they're doing, and then Congress needs to continue to do its oversight responsibility as a representative of the people.
Congressman, good. One final question for you. Switching gears here very quickly. The House left a little early this week after the Tuesday procedural vote on one of the rules actually went down. And at the heart of this is concern by conservatives that there's been a breach of agreement with the Republican leadership, and so the House left early this week. What's the resolution here?
Well, trying to give you the quick answer with the limited time that we have. Yes, there was a decision just kind of made organically on the House floor Tuesday evening that we were going to take down a rule to stop the legislative movement in the House to just say, hey, we're not going to stand for what happened last week with passing a massive spending bill that didn't work through regular order, that we felt like was a violation of the agreement that was made by some of my colleagues for Speaker McCarthy to become the Speaker of the House, to cut spending, to institute fiscal reforms. And then there was some retaliation towards members who voted against the rule last week to advance the debt ceiling bill, which we think is a terrible bill. It basically adopts and continues all of the massive spending of the Biden administration for the remaining year and a half that's left in hopefully in this president's term. And every Republican who voted for that bill voted to own that spending and to affirm that spending, quite frankly. It keeps spending basically flat for the next year and a half unless there's new spending that's increased. But frankly, it's an unlimited increase to the debt ceiling, as much as Congress can spend. And frankly, this was, hey, we're hitting pause to say, we're not going to continue down this track. We need to come back together and now, and frankly, break the coalition that was established last week between House Republican leadership and Democrats to pass massive spending legislation that's harmful to the country and ruins or further worsens our fiscal situation.
Are you close to getting to an agreement? An understanding?
Well, we're certainly having discussions. I'm still in D.C. Many of my colleagues that are part of this initiative are still here in D.C. And we did get agreement to move Andrew Clyde's bill protecting pistol stabilizing braces. That's going to be voted on. That's going to be the first thing that's going to be voted on next week on Tuesday. But there's more than that to talk about on how we move forward together.
All right. Congressman Bob Good, always great to see you. Appreciate your leadership on the Hill. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Tony. Great to be with you.